Hi everybody, I'm just here doing the 500 subs contest for Robert Sounds Strange. Anyone who's watching this will know what a joy it's been for everyone to take part in this contest. Now then, if you're watching this, you know Rob, you know everything about him. I don't need to really add anything. It'll only embarrass the guy. I'm sure he just wants to get on with it as well. Now the first question of the first five, the show section, was show a record with a literary connection, do whatever you like. So here we go. I was thinking, there were tracks like as a Picasso, some of it Picasso, Adam and the Ants did. Peter Gabriel did one on Rothko's Chapel after visiting that. I thought, let's go literally, literal, literary. So, I was considering maybe T.S. Eliot, maybe Dylan Thomas. And I pulled this out the other day. Let's get rid of it. A really nondescript cover. This actually belonged to the English department in 8 Woburn Square. Now the reason I'm showing this is on Cadman, is it has copies of a very few recordings made by W.B. Yeats. Now I'm not playing the Irish card, it's just that when I pulled this out the other day, I used to listen quite often to Edith Sitwell's Still Falls the Rain from 1940. And it's wonderful to hear the actual poets themselves interpreting their own work. I say interpreting, delivering their own work. And when I put this on again the other day, I thought, I'm going to play a little bit to you now on this portable. You listen to the music in the voice, and you listen to what's lost nowadays in a lot of poetry. And I think the 60s kind of killed verse, really, in the main. There's still a few, the Seamus Heaney's of the world and stuff who kind of made it through and were still eloquent enough to survive the kind of dull, free verse, soporific kind of boring trash that has been around for many, many years. Anyway, this is W.B. Yeats, maybe 2 or 3 years before he died in the 30s. Apparently he was tone deaf, but his delivery and the musicality of it is amazing. I'm just going to play, it's only a short thing, and it's called a short poem, The Song of the Old Mother. Hopefully you can hear this.
I rise in the dawn and I kneel and blow till the seed of the fire flicker and glow. And then I must scrub and bake and sweep till stars are beginning to blink and peep. But the young lie long and dream in their bed of the matching of ribbons for bosom and head. Their day goes over in idleness. They sigh if the wind but lift up a tress, while I must work because I am old, and the seed of the fire gets feeble and cold.
Just wonderful, wonderful rhythm. The pacing, but the words themselves. I think the problem with a lot of poetry is it can be hard, even listening to that band. If you listen to it for the first time, it's very difficult, even if it's top quality recording. It's very difficult to take in what's being said, and you kind of have to work at it. With music, even if it's poetry with a music backing, I think that's easier to kind of take on board. It's like the music somehow helps you to connect with the words, whereas it can be very difficult to concentrate the ear, especially if you're not used to the rhythms and that kind of thing, that kind of musical language. We're so used to just speaking as I'm speaking now, just in sentences, speaking to one another, without the different inflections and different mannerisms and attitude of voice. And also, you're not having to try to express something in a poetic way. But anyway, that's the literary connection. Now we're going with the artistic connection. Now I'm going to play a little bit of it in the background as we're going. You may not be able to hear that, and that's okay. This is Debussy's La Mer. Now, where's the artistic connection, you may ask? In the 1850s, bear with me, in the 1850s, Japan was a closed door, up until the 1850s, a closed door to the Western world. It didn't open that doors to the West. Now, in 1854 that changed. That was still elements, Dutch East India Company and things had gone out and done little bits of trade here and there. But it wasn't until the 1860s, there's a big exhibition in Paris where there's a big Japanese exhibition, and it became massively popular, hugely popular across the whole of Europe. A huge kind of movement and interest in the Far East developed, and because it was something no one had seen before, and the vogue was we must have this stuff. We want to know more. We want to see more. We want to enjoy more of what they have to offer. Now, in that exhibition, a particular painting was shown. I'm just going to hold this up here. It's a really famous picture. You will have probably all seen this before. It's the Great Wave of Kanagawa, now by Hokusai. Now Debussy hadn't seen it at that point in Paris. He went to Rome, he was kind of depressed, he picked up a few prints. And one of the prints was that particular picture. And he had it carefully framed and it hung on his wall in his studio for many, many years. Now, that is more than likely the inspiration. There's nothing directly linking this record cover with that. There's no information saying that on the back. But that hung on his wall for many, many years. Now, it wasn't until it was actually released and the first orchestral edition was published, and this was the cover, and you see they'd used it to show the unsubtlety of the fact of that's his inspiration. That particular painting was the thing that inspired him to create this piece of music, which is an incredibly famous piece of music. He deliberately didn't call it a symphony because it would be too many formal structures and stuff you'd have to follow, but he used like 3 short parts and broke it down and made it more fluid. Partly like the Japanese art, the influence of the Japanese art. So this particular piece of music was inspired by that particular painting. I'm going to move on. I see time is flying by. I thought I might be able to do this in 10 minutes. Right, next. Now then, this is gonna. We'll see where we go with this. A record with a historical connection. There's all sorts of records with historical connections, and but you can't get any more connected than something from the very time that it was written and taken place. This is War Songs of the Third Reich. Now, I picked this up in a charity shop a few months back now, because it's interesting as a document. When you look at these on the back here, these are mainly kind of marching kind of tunes. But these are all songs recorded during the period of 39 to 45. They actually sung on this record by the Hermann Göring Music Corps and the Watch Battalion of Berlin. Now people will probably go, oh, what is he showing that for? Because our modern sensibility would say, you can't do that. But to me it's a fascinating thing, because music has been used in war well, forever. Yeah, people have marched to the beat of a drum. You would think about those American, Vietnam sort of marching songs. It's just that it's part of something which drives, impels people forward. It compels them. In Napoleonic times, you had a drummer and a trumpeter. The trumpet was mainly for signals, but you had a drummer, and that drummer was playing, and you followed that beat of that drum, and you followed that drummer into battle. And that drummer also was a signal, so that you knew where that person was, should you need to get back to him, should your unit need to get back. But the fascinating thing about this is, we had our songs in World War II as well. The English had them, we all had them. We all had these rousing things which were anti-British, anti-German. It's just very interesting to see the development of the songs and the music. I have a CD of World War I German marching tunes played by a British band, a military band, and you can't help but be it's very uplifting. It's really it just sort of promotes a sort of happiness within you. There are no lyrics to those, they're just wonderful tunes, uplifting, you feel sort of jaunty and happy. You're not associating the tune with what that tune was for, but those tunes were to build people up and to get them we can do this, we're part of this, we'll do this together. Now the difference with these is that our lyrics, and these are sort of during the war. If you've ever seen Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will, you'll see the development of the Nazis and the fascist party. And when they first started, music was always part of the parades and the big things, but they were small to begin with. They were small events, and the way they spoke was very much, we need to get Germany together, we need to pull together because of all the punitive measures that the Allies had put upon them after World War One. Crazy inflation, 80,000 marks for a loaf of bread, people wheeling wheelbarrows down the street just to get a bag of flaming, a pound of butter or something. Craziness. And so, but initially, you see, the music was an up-tempo, it was an arousing thing, and it was like we use music to get on board and to connect in some way. Now, it wasn't until later in the 30s you suddenly start to see the real the twisted evil starting to creep in. It may not even have initially been there in the early stages, but as it developed and the power, the power ultimately corrupts, that power came in. You see the change in Hitler and the people around him, the invective, the words that come out of his mouth are far stronger and much more wicked sounding. Whether that was a deliberate ploy, whether he could have kept that hidden, I don't know, for all those years, but he just kept going, and eventually it was just, monstrous. But these songs, let me put this on here. You've got Edelweiss. Now, not the Edelweiss you may know and you may think you know, but this is a favourite song of the German mountain troops because of the flower. We sail against England, a battle song against England and popular with the German Navy, as it was often played when they'd had a victory. Bombs on England, composed during the Battle of Britain. See, it's composed at that time. This is what we're doing now. This is how we communicate. This is how we get each other spurred up, and victory will be ours, and we're going to sing the victory. We know the power of song, but when you have the power of collective song, when a whole load of people are singing, you might have 50,000 people, watching a Queen gig back in the day or whatever, and they're all singing "We Are the Champions." There's a something that goes through you and you feel that. But when you're part of a war and you're feeling the sense of brotherhood and that oneness of spirit, you need that thing to elevate you. Now, Bombs on England sounds a bit silly really, but it's not. It's I don't mean nowadays to our ears it just sounds like a stupid thing to do. Why would you do it? Just let me play a little bit of this. Imagine this was being played over the airwaves to German forces during the Battle of Britain. It's rousing. It's going to take you on and look at how great we are. If you don't know what you're listening to, you just kind of go, they're just talking about bombing. So there's a lot of the tunes where had similar familiarities with folk music and folk stuff of the past in the German culture. Yeah, etc., etc. Song of the U-boat. You know, I mean, I've discussed it enough. But, there's all sorts of stuff on the Song of the Paratroopers. They all had their own song, Song of the Afrika Korps. And they needed that. Just like we needed it in our country for songs to keep us going and to spur us and onwards. Anyway, now a record not sung in English. Now this, my wife laughed at these questions. She laughed at that. She suggested Klingon. Now, there's no Klingon on this. I did have another record. I was hoping desperately to find some Klingon. Now, obviously, you said a bit more foreign language. Now, this is perhaps potentially, even after the last record, grounds for disqualification. But this, it's a Hilliard ensemble. Summa is Ukumen in. Now, these are English medieval songs. And the thing with the English songs of that period, there aren't really that many. There's a peculiarity to English music, which is very hard to find, because a lot of, obviously, Normans and French were in those roles and in those positions, for the majority of the kind of the early Middle Ages. So when you're looking for truly English music, it's very difficult to do. With this particular thing, I mean, it's not a foreign language as such. So there is Latin. There are Latin songs in here. No, that's essentially not a foreign language. It's an archaic language, perhaps. But the reason why I get shown all sorts of records with foreign language, I just thought this came to mind because the English which you're about to hear is Middle English, which essentially is a foreign language to us now. Completely foreign. Now in 500 years' time, maybe more, most of the way we talk now is probably going to be foreign. We're not going to understand a lot. There are going to be definite changes in words and in meanings and all sorts of new words introduced into the way we speak and into the culture. So it's very interesting. Now, by all means, disqualifying. But to me, this is a foreign language. Now it sounds. We've got some lyrics here. I'm going to just show you this. Now some of these are going to look familiar. You may be able to see them. Some of these words here you're going to understand. But some of them you're not. Sing cuckoo, new, sing cuckoo. Now that's obvious, the spelling's different, but we know what a cuckoo is. Summa is coming in. Now we know summer is coming in. But then there are some words on here. Groweth said and bloweth med and springth the woodnu. Or bleateth after long. Now again you see, it's the lamb bleating, it's coming after spring. Summer is coming. Bullock starteth, bucker verteth, Miria sing cuckoo. Now that looks almost like Welsh or something. But I'm going to play it. This is a short thing. This is a round. And this is actually this is how it was written. There were so many kind of notes made at the time where on the manuscript telling you exactly how to sing this. Now this is from 1240 and this could have been historical, but I'm using it as a foreign language because do we really understand what they're saying? That's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. Where do you hear that nowadays? Obviously, that's meant to be foreign language, not historical. Moving on. Now, this question I found the hardest of all. And again, grounds for disqualification coming up. A record that taught me something. Now, I know people are talking quite a lot about, you could easily go into how I first got into music, etc., or whatever, and the things that resonated with me as a young man. I did think I could show that I learned to play chess with this wonderful record, but unfortunately I already knew how. Well, I did think I could show Arnold Palmer giving golf instructions, and this is how I learned to play golf, following his lead. 2 LP set there, but I don't really like golf. What I've found is that this is going to sound a bit of a cop-out perhaps, but anyway, I personally have felt that every single record I've ever listened to has taught me something. Now that sounds like the ultimate cop-out, but it's so true, Every time I listen to a record, I'm learning something new. I'm learning something maybe about myself. For example, and I don't be purely frivolous, this particular record, Modern Jazz Quartet, I found that I've learned something that I don't really like the vibes, I don't really like them. I don't really, especially if they're across the entire album. I don't mind the odd track here and there because you can kind of stomach them. And sometimes they can just be too much. It depends, but no, for me, not really a fan. But you see, when I consider every record I've ever heard has always taught me something. Some things have taught me about other cultures in a roundabout way. I mean, I know other cultures have music which is different to my own. I know that already. I don't have to listen to a record to tell me that. But there are times you can listen to a record and go, ooh, and it does something and kind of touches you within here. And it teaches you something about your humanity. It teaches you something about who you are as a man or a woman in this world. You can hear something which you've never heard the likes of before. And it's like, but it's sort of every single record I ever heard, whether it be, Stiff Little Fingers, whether it be Shostakovich, whatever it might be, has taught me something. Because the very process of listening to music, you're absorbing in the same way, similar way, as you would if you're reading a book or whatever. You're absorbing information, you're learning something. You're being taught something by the person who's maybe writing the lyrics. You're listening to the lyrics. You're being taught how they think. It may even change or connect with something you believe, and it may change the way you think. And that does happen. I mean, especially when you're young, you kind of look for things to connect with in music and in lyrics, especially. So, that may be a bit of a cop out, and I could go deeper into this. But I'm seeing the time here, and it's my goodness, probably the longest video I've done apart from live stuff. And I know Rob hates videos over 30 minutes. So, I need to get to this tell section. I'm going to run through this. My favourite film and another soundtrack. Now, I already thought, I know you're born in 74, and so thinking about films from 73, I thought it's not going to be The Exorcist, it's not going to be American Graffiti. I know that you have Fantastic Planet, so that's one of them, soundtrack that you own, and The Wicker Man is probably, it's got to be up there, hasn't it? So the other two I'm going for, name 2 albums out. 2 albums with a month and year, that I thought has to be no other Gene Clark, and also Frank Zappa, Roxy and Elsewhere. 2 composers have most record. Oh my goodness. I was pairing S's and B's and M's and whatnot together. I mean, really, Beethoven should be there. Any classical music guy, regardless of the fact you haven't particularly spoken hugely about him, apart from that one video. I'm going with Beethoven. I was going to go, I just think he has to be there. But I'm also going to go, I was considering Brahms, I'm going Bartók, because I know that, the Miraculous Mandarin and Bluebeard's Castle and those are big, big favourites of yours. And plus he did some more compelling, smaller works. The main inspiration for you starting to play was Bert Jansch's first album. Now, the artist of Route 5, I know it's Paul Weller. I could not tell you the tunes. I'm listening, I'm thinking, oh, I know it. Oh. I have a lot of Jam records. I think I've even got a Style Council record somewhere, which I've never listened to. I'm not the biggest Paul Weller fan. I even have some of his 90s stuff and that, but Anyway, that's it. This is keeping it under 30. I can't believe I went on so long. Anyway, Rob, everyone loved it. I'm sure everyone loved this competition, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Anyway, fantastic stuff, Rob. All the best, and I hope you enjoyed that. Cheers.